planes, trains, and automobiles, and the last mad dash of Canada's 45th general election. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Follow the leader. The final few days of this election campaign will see all the party leaders fanning out across the country for one last sales pitch before Monday and Election Day. The Liberal leader Mark Carney started his day in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, home of Algoma Steel. And there are tariffs on Algoma Steel's exports to the United States, something Mark Carney made sure to mention.
Algoma builds what Canada needs right now, what Canada needs for the future, steel.
Carney was asked today, given the economic uncertainty right now, why he plans to maintain and even increase the industrial carbon tax. That's when Carney admitted he plans to bring forward a carbon tariff.
As our businesses, as our big industry, decarbonize, we don't want foreign steel coming here that's high carbon, right? From Asia, from America. So we will have a carbon border adjustment mechanism that prevents that from happening and puts them in a stronger position. So that's the second. And then the third aspect is we have this carbon market that's in place, and we have an opportunity so that the large polluters, on the marginal reductions that they make, that they can pay for people's climate-smart choices.
From the Sioux, the Liberal campaign will head next to Georgetown, Ontario. There's a brand new riding in that part of the country for this election. It's called Milton East, Halton Hills South. From there, a quick stop in Cambridge before heading about an hour's drive west, maybe a little more, to London, Ontario to wrap up the night. The Conservative campaign is raising eyebrows because of where it's concentrating its efforts to end this work week. Pierre Poilievre was in Saskatoon this morning after hosting a large rally in the city of Bridges last night, and Poilievre was in no mood for hecklers. He even called one of them a dirtbag.
Now, why might Mr. Carney want to tell lies? It's because he wants us all to forget. He wants us to forget about the lost Liberal decade, housing costs. He is the one who wants to get them out of here. 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 Get out of here. Get out of here. Another liberal stunt.
Veteran observers of political campaigns find it strange that the Conservatives are spending any time in Saskatoon. After all, before the election was called, the Conservatives held every single riding in Saskatchewan. It's not exactly a sign of confidence. But Scott Moe, the Premier of Saskatchewan, is confident in Pierre Poilievre, giving him his endorsement.
But isn't it time that we had a government that treats us like we're part of Canada? That's why I'm voting Conservative and voting for Pierre Poilievre to be our next Prime Minister. You see, policies matter. Policies that make our communities safer, that allow us to not only develop our resources, but then get them to market. Policies that create good-paying jobs and opportunities for Saskatchewan people today and into the future. Policies that ensure Saskatchewan receives fair and equal treatment with other provinces within a strong and united Canada.
Poilievre is hosting a rally in Calgary later today, also raising eyebrows. Why are the Conservatives in Calgary? Then it's wheels up for Battleground BC, a rally tonight on Vancouver Island, and then two more rallies tomorrow. One in Delta, British Columbia, and later in the day in Sudbury, Ontario. And then he has events on Sunday in Oakville, Pickering, Peterborough, before wrapping things up in his home riding of Carleton with another big rally. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is spending the day in southern Ontario. He was in Toronto this morning and again made his pitch that voters must elect New Democrats if they want to prevent a Liberal majority government.
Every single thing that we're proud of as Canadians, the things that make us Canada, our healthcare, our pension, our old age security, employment insurance, all of these things only happened because people voted for New Democrats and sent us to Ottawa to fight for and deliver these things. Right? Everything we're proud of happened when people put their trust in New Democrats. Because when we have power, we use it for people. We fight for people. That's what we do. We deliver for people.
It's no secret the NDP could face historic losses Monday night. Mr. Singh is at risk of losing his own seat in Burnaby. But in an interview with the Toronto Star, Singh said he has no regrets and that he sacrificed himself to save Canada from a Conservative majority government. The Singh campaign off to Hamilton now for a pair of events before also ending the night in London, Ontario. And as for the leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet, he's all over Quebec today. Started the day in Shawinigan, off to Trois-Rivières, and then a stop in Victoriaville, where he says he'll watch tonight's Habs game against the Washington Capitals. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
on News Radio.
We're back with our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership. Barry McLoughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa, at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University, and you can read Barry on his Substack. Welcome back.
Great to be with you, Rob.
Well, we've been asking you this every week. Who won the week?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I think the past couple of weeks have been going better and better for Poilievre. I mean, he's racing across the country doing his stuff, but then gradually as the week went on, a lot of the problems come home to roost. Like, his alienation for whatever reason with Doug Ford, his alienation with Tim Houston, his problems with nominated or candidates seeking the nomination. And I was involved with one. Turfs them out and replaces somebody that had no experience. Some staffer pops in, a no name that had no work done in the nomination battle. This is ridiculous. So they've mishandled that, and he's continuing to beat the drum for the he's really beating that drum for the base. But if you don't know by now, as the leader of the party, you won't win the election with just the base. You need to go to the next segment in the voter universe. Yeah, more traditionally called PCs. It used to be called Red Tories. Those that are not extremists. Those are moderate, but they're fiscal conservatives. And they want a sensible, reasonable adult in the room. And they've had trouble with Pierre Poilievre. They've sort of struggled with it, or continuing to struggle with it. But I think really in the end, there wasn't a clear dedicated winner this week, because Mark Carney kind of, we get into him, but he didn't have the most perfect of weeks either.
Why is that, Barry?
Well, because, his golden, thing in the whole campaign has been the Donald Trump threats and tariffs. 20 points up against Poilievre. He's the leader we want. Leadership qualities, the guy to stand up for Canada. Whenever Trump and tariffs make the news, there's Mark Carney. Whoosh, his numbers go up. Whenever it's about change, need for change, housing, affordability, you see a bump up in Poilievre's numbers. But here we have a situation where now it's a question mark. What really did Trump say? Oh, it turns out Trump did say 51st state. He didn't mention that in his account of that the one conversation he had with them. Now, right. Trump, being sadly the liar that he is, had to say a couple of times. He only talked to him once. He's got to add that. He's got to exaggerate. So the believability of Trump is low in Canada, certainly. So the question mark, is he working his way through this. Is he going to survive this? Is this going to take him down? I don't believe it will take him down. Yes, it is kind of a question mark. He's staying cool and not overreacting to it. But Trump does not have a high believability ranking in Canada anyway, so I think he will survive that.
Okay. So we're ending another week. When you look at it, I mean, you've been keeping score for us here every Friday. We really appreciate it. But when you look at the totality of the campaign, the one weekend of events left, what the answer seems obvious because the Liberals appear to be in the lead. But what party ran the better campaign?
Oh, I think the Liberals ran the better campaign. I mean, to take it from the graveyard, literally, and just zoom up there. In fact, sometimes you can overdo it. He peaked about 2 weeks ago, and been edging very slightly down as people begin to weigh things and so on. And so, could he have run a perfect campaign? No, he did not run a perfect campaign. He had his share of mistakes. He's a first timer. He's a total newbie to this. So I think, given that, yes, there are always going to be problems and mistakes, literally creating out of whole cloth a campaign team around him and messaging and positioning and all the things that go with it. I think they've done a very solid job. Poilievre's had 2 years to hone his messaging, positioning, to manage the media well, to handle and be more transparent in what he's doing, to not be so, hey, she's woke, we're kicking her out of this race, our own person. That kind of stupidity, that really, that should have been got through. We should have got over that. He needed to position himself as a G7 leader in the eyes of people, as a strong leader, a clear, thoughtful person. He didn't do that. He needed to do that.
Okay. I wonder, we're going to play this clip of, we just played it in our introduction. Poilievre in Saskatoon last night. It's a rally. Leaders get heckled at rallies. It happens. But last night, Poilievre, I don't know if it's a sign of maybe fatigue or frustration, kind of went off here. Called one of them a dirtbag. You can barely hear it, but you can hear it. It's on mic. But let's listen again here.
Now, why might Mr. Carney want to tell lies? It's because he wants us all to forget. He wants us to forget about the lost Liberal decade, housing costs. He is the one who wants to get them out of here. 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 Get out of here.
You hear that?
Get out of here.
Can you isolate that, David? Just that little part.
Get them out of here. Get out of here.
Dirtbag.
I heard it.
That's someone who's frustrated, I think. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
no, you're not reading too much into it.
No.
Sadly, and this is the other reason why you have to say, I'm sorry, he didn't live up to what he needed to do. He has been copying Trump on, that's a Trumpism right there. Get him out of here, grab him, throw him out. That's a classic Trump. No other leader does that. What a goal. I train politicians. There is a golden chance to say, you know what? Tell you what. We live in a country where people are entitled to free speech. And here's what I'm going to do. When this rally's over, I'm going to hand you this podium. And we won't be here, but you can speak to whoever you want. Whoever your supporters are, you talk to them. And do a thing like that sort of rises above them. But he lowers himself down to the lowest of the low. Why is he doing that? So I find it, the base, I go back to, I hate to be, the base loves it. They even do a television commercial on a golf course outside of Ottawa here.
Yeah. Well,
and
you're not going to win with the base. You're not going to win with the base, right? You're not going to win with the base. You're going to alienate people that
go, see ya. You know.
Okay. So look, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the personalities and personality conflicts. Pierre Poilievre's people not getting along with Doug Ford's people. That's been well documented over the last few weeks now. Similar stories in the news media today. Clashes between the Poilievre team and Tim Houston. And we'll talk about that viral video that Tim Houston released just as Pierre Poilievre was doing a big rally about 90 minutes away. in Trenton, Nova Scotia. I'm Rob Snow, here with Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Back with Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. What do you think about the personality conflicts that are coming to light now between Poilievre's people and Houston's people in Nova Scotia?
Well, again, another unforced error, own goal stuff. I mean, it is true that Houston had said, I'm not going to be supporting, any of the federal candidates. He's distancing himself. We're not the Conservative Party of Canada. We're not related to them. PC Party of Nova Scotia. Yeah, lots of premiers have done that over time. But, according to what we're reading and hearing, that Jenny Byrne got on the phone and was outraged by that, and it kind of threatened him that if he becomes prime minister, we won't be doing what Nova Scotia
won't lift a finger to help you, he said. Yeah.
Won't lift a finger to help you. So that's a threat, If you threaten a premier of a province, oh man, that is a declaration of war. And if you don't know enough about Tim Houston, you'd have to realize you just did something you can't walk back. So
so if it was a declaration of war, then, picture this. Poilievre is doing his biggest rally in Nova Scotia, his only real stop in Nova Scotia. And just as he's speaking, this hits social media, this video. I love Nova Scotia. I'm Tim Houston. I'm Nova Scotian. Listen to a little bit of this.
We will not be bullied by those that look to oppress us. We were the first province in Canada, the first port of call for generations of new Canadians, and we will never be the 51st of anything. My name is Tim, and I am Nova Scotian.
Okay. So we only have about a minute here. What's going on there, do you think?
Well, on two levels. He's standing up for Canada, very strong voice for Nova Scotia, going to be hit by those tariffs, and doing the right thing as a leader to just speak proudly about what Nova Scotia is, what it stands for. Well done, well executed, extremely well done. Opens questions of, what's his future plans? Has he got national ambitions? Well, you can kind of ponder that a little bit. Same with Doug Ford, you can ponder that one. I don't know. It could be, maybe not be, but he can't lose by doing that. And the fact that Pierre Poilievre had to go to Nova Scotia, and there's so many points behind in Nova Scotia, and that strong MPs like Rick Perkins, apparently their races are in trouble. How did this happen? This should not have happened. I've done PC premiers of Nova Scotia going back 20 and 30 years. And you need to be able to realize you're in PC land. You're not in conservative, deep base land. And to misfire on that is something else to wonder about. So in the end, it's that's part of why it's kind of a campaign that didn't quite come together the way it should have.
I guess what I want to get at here was the timing of the release of that video a coincidence?
Well, I think he had to get it in before the election, so he waited quite sure near the end. But I don't know about that. Again, we're all having fun with it. Okay, all right. We don't know that.
What do you think is going to happen Monday? Liberal minority, liberal majority, or are we in for a big surprise?
They're still edging towards a majority. They're very close to the majority. I think if you're betting the money, it would be a majority, but a strong liberal minority within a few votes would be seen as a real victory.
Okay. What an amazing few months.
Sure.
Can't wait to talk about it next week when it's all said and done with and the dust settles. Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye. Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
Well, he has been minding Ottawa's business and leading the pack this week, really, on one story. Tom Korski's back with us, managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Rob.
Yeah, great to hear from you today again, Tom. Great scoop. I must say, Blacklock's really led the way on this one. It was picked up by News Outside. I think it appeared in all the major news outlets by the end of the week. And was talked about on the hustings. A report from something called Policy Horizons Canada is a report on social mobility. So let's get some things out of the way here. I mean, what is Policy Horizons Canada? What do they do there?
It's a federal agency. They work for you. You pay their salaries. They're the big picture boys. They look ahead. And, well, why do I characterize their mandate? Why don't I just say what they say? They are thinking, I'm quoting, about future scenarios to help decision makers understand some of the forces already influencing their policy environment, Rob. It also helps them test the future readiness of assumptions built into today's policies and programs. End of quote. That's their job, as politicians and public office holders and federal managers are preoccupied with the day-to-day minutia, running a $500 billion budget every year. These are the big picture guys.
So it's a think tank, more or less, right?
Exactly.
Kind of a think tank.
Exactly right.
Now, in what government department? Because when you think about the food chain, the hierarchy of the government, this is pretty much near the top of the food chain, right?
Well, there's the Privy Council right at the very top, and they are obsessed. They almost have a fetish about studying behavioral science. They have a behavioral science unit. And then there's Policy Horizons Canada, the big picture that we described. So you are way up there. The Federal Privy Council, of course, is the very top of this organization that has over 400,000 employees. The clerk of the Privy Council, as you know this, despite the mundane title, is paid $500,000 a year, and you're second only. I mean, you advise the cabinet. You're a secretary to cabinet.
Yeah. You're the CEO of the government.
Exactly.
Government, right? Yeah. Policy Horizons Canada is the government's center of excellence in foresight. The center of excellence. So smart people, you would assume, smart people, right? So, I mean, they issue these reports. They issue these reports from time to time. Let's go big picture. What are the threats? What should our political leaders be thinking about?
Well,
what should they be concerned about? And they issue this report, and it's about social mobility. The title is Social Mobility in Question. What does it say?
It describes post-war Berlin. It says Canada in 15 years, within 15 years, by 2040, will face societal disintegration. How bad will it get? Well, most people won't be able to afford a home or post-secondary education. Wage earners will flee the country, they say. They go on to say that those who remain will be face downward social mobility, which is a fancy way of saying you're going to get poorer. And that will become very common, they say. And the element that really grabbed a lot of people was where they said, and I quote from the report, people may start to hunt, fish, and forage on public lands and waterways without reference to regulations. Small-scale agriculture could increase. Governments may come to seem irrelevant if they cannot enforce basic regulations, end of quote. They're describing post-war Berlin, where you will have a goat in your yard for milk, and you will go out and poach wildlife on the weekends for food. Canada in 2040, this is their forecast. Far-fetched? No, they described it as a plausible scenario.
Yeah. Now, some people, because Mr. Poilievre brought this up on the campaign, read directly from the report and was asked about it a couple of times this week on the hustings. There were news reports, commentary. Well, this organization is not saying this is going to happen. You know, these people have written other reports. Well, what about the pending civil war? Da da da. So I read this report. I read your report, and then I said, "Oh, I got to read this report. I want it," and it's publicly available. You just go to horizon.service.canada.ca. It's right there. You can read it for yourself. And what I want to kind of explore is, I read this report, social mobility in question, and there are parts of it. I mean, these are happening right now. This could happen in 2040. This is Canada 2025. Listen to this. I'm going to read right from the report. Okay. In 2040, owning a home is not a realistic goal for many. In 2040, owning a home is not a realistic goal for many. Really? In 2040? What about in 2025, Tom?
Well, this is it.
Right?
This is exactly it. That's right.
Intergenerational wealth, it says. In 2040, I'm quoting here, people see inheritance as the only reliable way to get ahead. Society increasingly resembles an aristocracy. Wealth and status passed down the generations. Family background, especially owning property, divides the haves from the have-nots. By 2040? Is this not happening now?
They do.
Where people see inheritance as the only reliable way to get ahead?
That's
family background, especially owning property, divides the haves from the have-nots?
Absolutely. The Bank of Canada will tell you that. They have data on that already. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
Bank of Mom and Dad, crucial.
Bank of Mom and Dad, of course, yeah.
That's right.
I want to talk about a few more things when we come back with Tom Korski as we talk about this report. It's a great scoop from Blacklocks this week. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back with Tom Korski from Blacklocks Reporter. We've been going through a big story from Blacklocks this week, which was about a report that was issued. It was actually issued in January. Got very little notice until Blacklocks published a story about it from a think tank within the government called Policy Horizons that lays out this, Tom, this like Dickensian look at Canada by the year 2040. And when I was reading through this report, I thought 2040, I mean, to me, so much of this is happening in 2025. So it goes through all of these potential risks to society that could compromise social mobility. And then it has a whole section called policy implications. In other words, you, the politicians, this is what you should be thinking about. Section 3.2, people's mental health may suffer. Quote, more people may struggle to afford rent, bills, or groceries. We need a think tank to figure this out. The resulting stress could worsen mental health challenges, increasing demand for social services. Gee, do you think?
Brutal.
Do you think? Right? Just so obvious. So obvious. Workers may seek greener pastures. Canada may become a less attractive destination for migrants if it is seen as a country where upward mobility is uncommon. Note to Policy Horizons, not by the year 2040. That is already happening. I have taken calls during Talkback from people who came to Canada and said, love the country, but it's not living up to the billing. And I'm seriously thinking about leaving. Like, this is not a 2020, this is not a 2040 thing, Tom. This is happening, and there's already ample data to suggest that this is happening.
It's brutal.
Right?
Rob, the one element of the report, aside from the snaring rabbits for food that was attention-grabbing for me, was they state this very matter-of-factly. What they're describing is the entire collapse of post-war ideals in one sentence, which is some accomplishment, but they did it. They wrote, many people in Canada assume following the rules and doing the right thing will lead to a better life. However, things are changing. End of quote. Are you kidding me? So that's it. We're here to shovel snow and pay taxes, and the kids will, as they put it, become less upwardly mobile than their parents. The whole point was more in this country, more education, a better, richer, fuller life.
Yes.
And this is gone not because of Donald Trump or climate change or our bad friends in NATO. This is man-made. This is Ottawa-made. And no wonder the Liberal Party doesn't want to talk about it. Forgive my bluntness.
Sure. No. And it is jarring to read something in a government report that says people may start to hunt, fish, forage on public lands and waterways without reference to regulations. Small-scale agriculture could increase. When I read that, small-scale agriculture could increase. Now, I covered municipal affairs for a long time on the radio in Ottawa, But this is a debate that has been happening in municipalities all across the country. Hello, has anyone heard of the big backyard chicken debate that has taken up time at city councils and town councils all across the country? How many people are like, you know what? Chicken at the grocery store is really expensive. Maybe we should get a couple of hens for ourselves around here and have some eggs. This is not a 2040 thing, is the point I want to drive home today. I think we've done that pretty well. Now, there are some people, Tom, who are not living this kind of life in 2025 or in 2040. Tom Clark, why don't we just wrap up with this? Because we seem to be talking about this guy's exploits every week when we speak with Tom Korski. This is kind of the latest installment of It's Tom Clark's Wonderful World. He is, remember, our consul in New York City. Gosh, this guy gets around, doesn't he, Tom?
Work. Tom Clark's claim to fame is the only consul we've had in New York over the past 50, 60 years who's ever had his expenses reviewed by a parliamentary committee because of his approval of a $9 million penthouse near Central Park that had a marble-clad bathroom. But it's not just about home cooking for Consul Clark. Access to information records show that he has billed thousands for expenses, including a trip to Bermuda, where he you have to write into the expense claim the purpose of the trip. Yeah. He had a lunch on a junket to Bermuda to examine high school culture in Bermuda. High
school culture in Bermuda.
Learn more about Bermudan high school culture. Well, you can't just pick up a phone to do that.
Yeah. That's good.
And there was my favorite was the $2,000 3-course lunch with wine at his Park Avenue penthouse, and they discussed affordable child care. Work in Manhattan.
Yes. Yeah, a little more than $10 a day to keep Tom Clark in New York, isn't it? Holy smokes! What a life!
Oh, Rob.
Oh, life. Okay. Yeah. Nothing Dickensian about Tom Clark. Living the high life in New York. No backyard chickens in the New York penthouse.
No, that's snaring rabbits on the weekend. That's for losers.
Not for him. Tom Clark is not foraging on public lands. Okay. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter. He's minding Ottawa's business. Aren't you glad someone is? I'm Rob Snow. Here with David Smith on a Friday. We made it already to Friday. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, now you know with Rob Snow, there's a great new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. Listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. Spelled Seekr, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, sports. You can download Seeker for iOS or Android. Seeker, spelled Seekr, and now you know with Rob Snow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Here with David Smith on a Friday, another week that just flew by. Hey?
Oh, yes, being busy, we'll do that.
So one thing about covering an election campaign, all the days seem to be the same. You're just going from event to event, development by development. And, of course, Monday, it will all come to its stunning conclusion. So we could talk about that during the Friday Free For All Talkback or whatever else you want to talk about at 1-833-668-2577. Coming up right after the news. As well this week, we are a little sleep deprived. The hockey gods have conspired not only to keep me up past my bedtime, but to ensure that when I do go to bed, I go to bed heartbroken.
Yeah.
As an Ottawa Senators fan. So last night, it's game 3.
Wait, hang on. I have something for this here.
All right.
Here go ahead.
No, that's okay. But I see what you tried and did there. The Ottawa Senators. It's the first playoff game in 8 long years. A Canadian Tire Center. They're down to the hated Toronto Maple Leafs, and they come back and take it to overtime, and lickety split within about 90 seconds of overtime. The game is over, and now they're down 3-0, and it's pretty bleak in Ottawa Senators land. But I'm sure all the Leaf fans in Southern Ontario and across the country, they are happy today. And look, the Leafs are playing pretty well. Have to give it to them.
You got to give it to them.
There.
At some point, you got to give it to them. They're playing phenomenal. And the Sens
their
didn't even play
goalie's
that
great.
bad. The Sens weren't that bad last night.
No.
They looked better.
Look, I mean, you take the best team in the Atlantic Division to 2 overtime games, 1 lucky bounce in both of those games, and you're leading the series 2-1. And instead, you're down 3-0. And so game 4 in that series goes tomorrow on ice, which I will be watching, but my hope is fading. And tonight it's the Habs and Capitals, and as well Edmonton back in action tonight as well against the Kings. And both of those Canadian teams, Habs and Oilers, are both trailing in their series 2 games tonight. So coming up after the news at the top of the hour, Dave, free for all, talk back.
Wide open.
Yeah, wide open. One of the questions I'm going to ask today, you hear this line all the time. Elections have consequences, Dave?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Elections have consequences. They usually say that about Trump, right? When Trump wins. Remember, elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. So I just maybe run this by the listeners, What could the consequences be of this election?
Ooh.
Say if the Liberals win.
Yeah.
What are the consequences of that if the Liberals win? If the Conservatives win, what are the consequences of that? Because there's a reason people are not voting for the Conservatives. They must be worried about the consequences of that. Elections have consequences. What could be the consequences depending on the outcome of Canada's 45th general election? We can kick that around or kick anything you want around because it's the Friday free-for-all talkback. You can get in line right now if you want at 1-833-668-2577. We'll be on the phones for the last time this week. Right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today it's the Friday free-for-all, our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Fridays. We've been doing that all week long. Today it's your turn. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about something that's been in the news? I hear there's an election campaign going on, for example. We could jump right into that. If you want to talk about something else, anything else, feel free to raise it here, whatever it happens to be. We are here, and we are all ears. Our call-in line is 1-833-668-2577. You should save that number in your phone. Put us on speed dial, 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, just mention that, and we'll make your call a priority. Why don't we get right to it here? Dennis in Calgary, up first on the Friday Free-for-All Talk Back. Hi, Dennis.
Oh, hi, Rob.
Hi,
Good
Dennis.
program.
How are you? Thank you.
Great.
What's on your mind?
I'm just wondering, my question is, how much does the personality of the candidate, do you think, tie in with the success of the election?
Oh, I don't know how much. How much do you think it weighs
Well,
in?
to me, for example, Pierre seems quite arrogant, just in his tone, his facial expressions.
Okay.
And that tends to turn me off.
Okay.
And it has an effect on my feeling about their party. And I'm
Just
wondering
the way he comes
former-
across, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, just the tone of his voice, the expression on his face.
Okay.
He seems to be sort of like, you've got to listen to me right now. And I know it all type of thing. That's the way I view it.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm wondering if that has an effect on election results or if no one pays attention to that.
Oh, I'm sure people are paying attention to that. You know, style,
And,
people's tone of voice, how they carry themselves, how they interact with other people, whether that's a political opponent or say a member of the news media when they're being asked questions, you know, stuff like that. Sure. I'm sure it's all important.
Yeah. You don't get many comments on that, however.
Haven't had too many comments on that, but let me play you, let's play a clip. Okay. And just let me get your take on this. Okay. So Pierre Paul, he's having a rally today in Calgary, by the way. They're already lined up like 2 hours before it starts. There's already a big line outside of the building where they're having this Pierre Paul rally in Calgary today. But yesterday he was in Saskatoon having a rally, and then he was getting heckled, and then this happened here.
Now, why might Mr. Carney want to tell lies? It's because he wants us all to forget. He wants us to forget about the lost Liberal decade, housing costs. He is the one who wants to get them out of here. 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 Get out of here. Get out of here.
Dirtbag. He called one of them a dirtbag, Dennis. What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
Well, like I say, even the tone of his voice there and just things he says like that.
Okay.
Really turned myself off.
It turns you off. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, when you listen to Mark Carney or you see how he handles himself, what do you see there?
Well, he seems to be more pleasant and a more pleasant personality.
Okay.
And the odd smile on his face, whereas Pierre rarely smiles, it seems like, or looks cheerful. Sort of like, oh, listen to me, right?
Okay.
And I'm wondering
That's
why
very
he has
interesting.
to have Stephen Harper do a lot of his ads. Is that part of it? Stephen Harper does do the odd smile. He seems to appear more pleasant. Why isn't Pierre speaking for himself? Why does he have to have Harper do it for him? Which he is also called the Prime Minister Harper. Well, he's no longer Prime Minister, but anyway.
Well, once you're Prime Minister, you're always the right honorable, sir. You have that title for life. So, yeah. Okay.
So,
fair enough.
anyway,
I will say, just on that, Jean Chrétien, there's the guy. How old is Jean Chrétien now? He's still out there campaigning for the Liberals. He pops up at events all the time for the Liberals, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
They all do it, sir. They all do it. But your point is well taken on, tone and style and how much it matters. I mean,
yeah, that really strikes me as a negative feature, right? But
fair enough, Dennis. Thank you for your call, Dennis.
And, just in general,
gotta go. I gotta go, Dennis. Thank you. I'll have to wrap it up there. Let's go to Halifax and get Dave on here. Hi, Dave.
Yes, Rob, are you picking me up?
Got you just fine, Dave. Loud and
All
clear,
right.
10-4.
I'm actually down on my property in Lunenburg County, and I'm at my camp. But anyways, I thought, because I was listening to the radio on the way down, I loved your show, and also Todd Vino before. So the previous caller, my goodness, what's happening to us Canadians? Have we gotten soft? Are we going to be recognized? Oh, they're very polite, but their military is shat. Trudeau was an embarrassment, in my opinion. Remember when he went to India and he was in that Indian garb and all that? It was an embarrassment.
Playing Mr. Dress Up.
Trump heard him, right? The media heard him talking down Trump. You just don't do that. You know what I mean? And Trump has never forgiven that. And he's back in now. So you saw Trudeau's, and like I said, we elbows up. Yeah, let's play some hockey. Thank goodness we beat the Americans when we really needed it. But let's toughen up. Let's get a backbone. Because I was listening to your guy before, Todd Korski. Is it Todd or Tim?
Tom Korski. Yeah, Tom Korski.
Tom Korski. I was close. But anyways, wow. we are there, man. We are there. Like, we are in a situation now. We're living paycheck to paycheck thanks to the last destruction of our country over the last 10 years, in my opinion. And, if you haven't got investments now in real estate or something, gold would have been the thing to invest in. That's always strong. It's sad. It's a frightening situation. Now, I also want to talk about Tim Houston here, our fine premier.
I would like to talk about Tim Houston as well. Can you just hang on the line? I'll bring you back on. 4 minutes here with David Halifax on the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. So what do you make of all of these reports? Tim Houston, Pierre Poilievre, if they don't get along, their people don't get along. What's going on here? What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, progressive conservatives, right? They're progressive conservatives. They're playing the political game. They're two-faced. And they both had a snap election, Doug Ford and Tim Houston, who vowed he would never do that. And both these snap elections cost the taxpayer millions of dollars. They were in good position, of course, in its political games, right? And to do that, I admire that. That's politics. And to me, and there was also that gag order I think Tim Houston had on, I can't remember what the position was, as far as recording what's going on as far as transparency, and he wanted to limit that person. And I can't remember the role that she played here, you might know, and to gag her. So he's not, there's things going on there as well.
Well, I think that was about the Auditor General, right, in Nova Scotia.
Auditor General, thank you. Yes, exactly. And that was a pretty authoritarian move as far as I'm concerned. So if people are worried about, authoritarianism, which is going on, I guess, where authoritarianism happens is when things become too far left, when things start reeling out of control, like crime, homelessness, people going around stabbing, mental health issues. And that Tom Korski, Tom,
Tom,
Tom, sorry. He had, that was frightening. But we, in some ways, look around your cities and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And
our whole point is that's not a 2040 Canada. That's not what Canada looks like in 2040. To a large extent, a lot of that stuff is happening now already.
I think frighteningly so. And if we side with China and we start befriending China, take a look at their history and what they're doing right now to I think it's the Uyghur people, the Tibetans. It's horrendous.
Falun Gong practitioners, all of it. Yeah. Okay, Dave. Look, thank you. Have a nice time down at the camp. I hope you get good weather down there. Okay, let's move along to Edmonton, from Halifax to Edmonton, Alberta. Hello, Paul. It is. Yes, Paul.
Hello.
Hi, Paul. Good to hear from you, Paul. You're on the air. What's on your mind?
Okay. A while back, we had there's been several giveaways by Liberals to various companies. When I'm looking at the debate, and Carney was talking about affordable housing. He was talking about all the money and the giveaways that he was going to give to the companies. Well, at the same time, there's been advertisements on CBC, I believe it is, from Brookfield, the company that Carney's hooked up with, about all the homes they're going to build. Well, I'd like to see how much money is going to be given in the way of subsidies or whatever by the Liberals to Brookfield. To me, this is a major conflict of interest, the same as the major pipeline that Brookfield is in the process of buying in the States.
Okay.
Well, Carney doesn't want to put pipelines in Canada. We've gone through the Bombardier scandal. We've gone through the SNC-Lavalin scandal. And I got a feeling we're going to be into the Brookfield scandal. And before anybody casts a ballot, I think maybe there should be they should be taking a look at this.
Sure, some people are. Thank you, Paul in Edmonton, for your call. To Karen in Calgary. Hello, Karen. You're on the air. You're up next on the Friday Free for All Talkback. What's on your mind today?
Well, I believe earlier you asked about consequences. If someone gets in.
Yeah.
So I believe if Carney gets in and the Liberals get in, that we're going to have a very similar government to we already have, if not more fanatical about carbon.
Okay.
And if you've read anything that Carney's written, he absolutely believes in carbon taxing.
Oh, sure.
So, yes,
he was one of the great carbon tax evangelists. I mean, he would talk to anybody who would listen about the beauty of the carbon tax.
The consequence. I don't think he's paused it, but that's a pause. He can bring it back whenever he wants. It's still legislation.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you're right there.
So that's what I think the consequence of Carney getting in. I also think the consequence of Carney getting in is that the country is going to become more divided. There's rumblings in Alberta about leaving. I know there's always a little bit of rumbling, but these are rumbling from people I've never heard it from before.
Yeah. They're more than rumblings now.
Yeah, they feel unlistened to and used, or just a paycheck. They just want our cash. They don't care what we have to say or what we want. They just want our money. I think if the Conservatives get in, there's also going to be a great big divide. We're becoming more Americanized in our two-party division. I find that Polyev has a tendency to pander to the far right.
Okay.
Which I don't think does him any good, personally.
Right.
He's not for me.
Not moderate enough, you think?
Well, yeah, like some of the things that he said rubbed me the wrong way.
Sure, fair enough.
I'm so tired of hearing his sound bites about the lost liberal decade and all of that stuff. Like, we've heard it. We've gotten your messaging. Talk about something else.
Okay. Too repetitive.
It's like he's talking to a 4-year-old. So then he comes off as arrogant.
All right.
Because he's repeating the same thing over and over.
Okay.
We're not stupid. We got your message.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Thank you.
We're going to have to wrap it up there, Karen. Thank you. Have a great weekend. First-time caller, Karen. Okay, we have a couple of lines available if you want to jump into it. We're just getting going here. It's the Friday free-for-all talkback. Bernie, the old lefty in Mississauga. What's up, Bernie?
Oh, how you doing, Rob?
Good, Bernie. Good to hear from you. How are you feeling these days,
Monday
Bernie?
Coming, the big event.
Oh, yes.
I see the Tories and Liberals are about 85% of the popularity in the country, according to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be voting with the 8%ers. I'm going to vote NDP, and I believe that they're the social conscience of this country. I think the vitriol between the Tories and Liberals got the country divided between the East and the West. And I think that the battle for social justice will still go on. We're not going anywhere. Even if we're only at 8%, we'll be fighting down to the last one.
Bernie, let me ask you this. As someone who's been voting New Democrat all his life, okay, Mr. Singh says he has no regrets. Did it to save Canada from the scourge of a conservative majority government. He says, yeah, I could have pulled the plug on the Liberals in the fall when they were down and out. We could have won all kinds of seats for the Democrats. Would have been good for the NDP, but it would have been bad for Canada because Polyev would have been the prime minister. What do you think of that? Do you wish that the NDP would have called the election when Justin Trudeau was in?
No, I don't. I think if they had called an early election, the people would have blamed them for that. They would have blamed them for calling an early election. They kept the government going for 5 or 6 years. They passed some progressive legislation to help the ordinary people. And we'll go down fighting. We're still here. We're not going anywhere. Even if we're at 8%, the flame still burns.
Let me ask you this, Bernie. It's not looking good for Jagmeet Singh out in Burnaby. Is there anybody out there, you know all the top New Democrats out there, anybody you like as a new leader?
I just remember that they're talking about Jagmeet Singh losing his seat.
Yeah.
But, I remember Tommy Douglas fought a major battle of get Medicare across this country, and they defeated him in his own country. We're used to it. We'll lay her down and bleed a while and get up and fight again another day.
Okay. All right, Bernie. Have a good weekend.
Okay,
see how it all turns out on Monday. Look, why don't we stop right there? Because if I bring anybody on now, you'll only have about 30 seconds. I want to give you all the time that I can manage for you today on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Go to Ken in Cochrane. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for doing this. You guys do a great job, you and David and the whole crew. Really enjoy, hearing from everybody across the country. Two things that I wanted to actually comment on. First of all, the gentleman that called earlier on, and he was talking about Poilievre being arrogant and, his superficial, I guess, analysis of a candidate, and maybe that's how he is going to vote based on that superficial analysis. But I'd ask him to go and look at the clips that Mr. Carney, and maybe you've got the clip of him mansplaining to Rosemary Barton about, I can't remember what the topic was, but basically him mansplaining, and he's basically done that to a number of different reporters.
The soundbite was "Look inside yourself," right? Look inside yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly it. And it really was mansplaining. And there are other examples of his arrogance as well. So, nobody has a monopoly on arrogance when you're, I guess, a politician. The other comment. Consequences of elections, I think we're actually seeing it right now, and the Privy Council's report that was just released demonstrates that Mr. Carney's 6 years of advising the government has started to bring us down this path, and I don't want to, I'm just afraid of what the country is going to look like if we get another Liberal government that's going to basically double up on the Trudeau policies. I'm deathly afraid.
Right. Again, so you're talking about the Policy Horizons report. We discussed this. It was Tom Korski's scoop from Blacklock's reporter. This is a think tank that operates as part of the Privy Council. It says, look, it talked about social mobility could be a big issue. Well, you don't think social mobility is a big problem now? How many times, David, over the years that we've been doing Talkback, have we asked, do you think you're going to be better off than your parents were? Right? We have done that show multiple times, and we have had lots of feedback. No, I don't think I'm going to enjoy the same standard of living that my parents enjoyed, the same kind of job security. I won't be able to own a home, da-da-da-da-da. So that's what this report was all about, and it said, this is what Canada could look like in 2040. In 2040. Now, this is one of the things that's in the report. In 2040, owning a home is not a realistic goal for many. In 2040? What about now? Doesn't that apply now, Ken?
It absolutely does, Rob. And like I said, the last 6 years of Mr. Carney advising the Trudeau government is going to just end up being worse. The same policies, the same net zero consequences, the same non viability in terms of growth of our economy based on exploiting our natural resources. It's all not happening, and it's not going to happen even more if we elect a Carney government. So that's all I have to say. Thanks very much.
And you've said it, Ken. Thank you for your call to Kitchener, Ontario. Mike is up next. Hello, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good. Calling from Ontario, and I listened to your discussion about the lack of a relationship between Pierre Poilievre and Doug Ford in Ontario.
Yes.
And John Houston out in Nova Scotia.
Tim Houston, yeah.
And I will tell you, I am a progressive conservative. I have voted for Doug Ford 3 times now in a row. But federally, me and a lot of my friends who are progressive conservatives are on the Carney bandwagon. The problem is the federal conservatives are not your grandparents' conservatives anymore.
Right.
They are the Reform Party with lipstick. And people in Ontario and I think in Eastern Canada see that.
What is the evidence of that?
Pardon me?
What's the evidence?
Look at his voting record on MAID. Look at his voting record on gay rights. The thing is, people can be economically sound which is what I would like to think I am, but I'm socially progressive. And
Fair enough.
the Conservatives they have put 3 leaders in the window now over the last 3 elections.
Sure.
That are, quite frankly, reformers.
Okay. Do you think everything is going well with the MAID regime? Let me ask you this. Do you think everything is going well with MAID in this country?
I will tell you this. My father had MAID, and it was the most wonderful, peaceful process I've ever seen.
Okay. There's a story in the news today that when veterans are going in to get veterans support services, instead they're being offered MAID. The government said this was a one-off. There have been repeated examples of this. Of this.
I don't disagree.
We have had people who are opting for MAID not because they're facing any kind of terminal illness or are in palliative care, but rather because social supports are not there and they just feel that life is not worth living anymore because they're poor. Do you think that's okay?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But
on the social issues, particularly with just let me finish. You brought these things up. I just want to maybe rebut a little bit.
Yep.
The deputy leader of the Conservative Party is gay and married.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that makes no difference to you? That makes no difference to you?
Viros or whatever his name is.
Who?
The fellow out in, I believe he's in Alberta. Viros
right.
is his last name.
Okay.
Look at what he says about gay rights. Look what he says about abortion.
Right.
It comes down to what
there are Bible
Rob.
belts in parts of the country, sir, where people are deeply religious
and in your heart. And I guess this party is too far to the right for what I would call a progressive conservative.
And you have somebody like Eric Duncan who fought for years as a conservative member of parliament against the gay blood ban. Mm-hmm. That means nothing to you?
Oh, at this point, it doesn't. You had Aaron O'Toole in the last election suggest that he was going to legalize poppers. How do you think the gay community looked at that? They just rolled their eyes.
Okay. Well, all right.
It comes down to where you are in your heart. And all I'm saying is these people are not my grandparents' conservatives.
That's how you feel, sir.
I don't have a problem with that. But they lose too many people in Ontario, Rob.
Okay. Yeah, you may be right, and that may bear out, and we can kick that around for the next hour and a half here on Talkback. I thank you for your call. Thank you for the debate. Good discussion, Mike, in Kitchener. Glad we can disagree without being disagreeable. James in Calgary on the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. Hello, James. Hello, James.
Hello?
James, hello. Yeah, there you are, James. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to say I am disgusted and disgruntled with the way this country has become.
Okay.
Please
explain.
Worked my whole life. My dad's probably rolling in his grave today because he fought in World War II to create a great country and keep it free, and it is no longer free or a great country anymore. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I ended up with a bad situation where I now collect both my pensions. I don't even make $1,000 a month on them. I'm 69 years old, and I have to work 60 hours a week just to try and survive. I do not have a place to live anymore. I sleep on my daughter's couch, and just got my taxes done, and the damn government still wants 20.
I think.
So definitely not.
All right, you're in a cell dead zone, James. So we're gonna have to move along. But gosh, that sounds really tough. That sounds like a really tough predicament that you are in, and I can understand your frustration. And I appreciate. I wish we had more time, but unfortunately, the cell quality is just not where it needs to be. All the best to you, sir. God bless. Jason in Kitchener up next. Jason. Hello, Jason.
Hi. I just said, during one of the commercial breaks there, too, I heard about Carney talking about how now Canada's in a crisis because of the Trump tariffs. He's trying to use recency bias to distract us from the fact that Canada's been in a crisis for years because of liberal policies. This is a change election, and Trudeau's advisor and Trudeau's cabinet is your other caller said too, how much of that money is going to end up in his holdings company there? I mean, I'm not a stock expert, but I wouldn't mind investing in that if he does win, because we make pretty good money.
Okay. All that he would say is in a blind trust right now. He has no control over that. That's what he would say. And he's putting up ethics screens. So that ethically, you don't have anything to worry about there.
Well, he knows where
According
his
to
money
him.
is. He's going to do the policies that are going to up that, and then when he's done, he's going to move out of Canada again. He's only here to help Brookfield. And he moved his company out of Canada because he really doesn't care about Canada. And he's not tied to here. He's not the change we need. He's not change. He's the one that is telling Trudeau what to do. So, and then a lot of people, I know they can't get off CBC, and they think that they're going to put it to Trump by voting for Carney. If you vote for Carney, the only person you're putting it to is your grandkids, because they will never be able to afford a home or even to pay the deficits that we're going to be running. So, I mean, you want your grandkids to have to move to the States to get a job and buy a house, then vote for Carney. If you want Canada to hopefully get back on track possibly, then I think it's pretty obvious you got to vote for Pierre.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it all turns out, and what the future holds for Canada on Monday. Sir, and I thank you for your call. We're going to stop a little bit early there and figure out again what's going on with that blasted phone. Let's go to Dan Veer's out in Calgary today. Hello, Dan Veer.
Hello, Rob.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Dan Veer.
Yes. Yes. So
what's on your mind today?
Okay, so this is about the first thing, the Elections Canada. Like they have the responsibility to conduct a free and fair election, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So when it says free, it should be free of any influence. So when this election, it was pertinent that there is so much influence from whatever Donald Trump is saying. They should have postponed it, at least a month or so.
Okay.
Right. So and on Mr. Trump's things, he always mentions 51st state when there's a little bit lead on the conservative side. So I don't know, does he want Mr. Carney to be our prime minister?
I don't know. What do you think?
How should the Canadian citizens respond to that?
Yeah.
At least if they don't want to vote conservative, at least vote for NDP so that Mr. Carney doesn't get the full majority, and it's not the outcome what the on the south side of border they wants it to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were talking about consequences, right?
Elections have consequences. How many times have you heard that? Elections have consequences. I'm just asking, what could be some of the consequences depending on the result?
So,
whether that's a liberal government or a conservative government, what could be some of the consequences of that?
So just today morning, when they talked about the steel industry, they want the imports to be to have more tariffs.
A carbon tariff, yeah.
Yeah. So then Mr. Carney said there should be carbon tariffs. So what that would do is increase. The biggest problem right now is higher prices. So that would, again, increase the prices. The steel is, it seems like it's, nobody thinks about steel. But steel is kind of the basic building blocks of an economy.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And then
it's one of them,
it would add up all the way. So rather than putting tariffs, he could have even said that, okay, we'll give you benefits. That would have.
Okay. Well, let's listen. Mark Carney was asked about this. He was asked about, okay, you got rid of the consumer carbon tax. What about your industrial carbon tax? He was at the headquarters of Algoma Steel today, massive steel operation there in Sault Ste. Marie. So he talked about the industrial carbon tax, but he also talked about, I call it the carbon tariff. He doesn't call it that. It's a border adjustment mechanism is what he calls it. David, roll the tape on that if you can.
As our businesses, as our big industry decarbonize, we don't want foreign steel coming here that's high carbon, right? From Asia, from America. So we will have a carbon border adjustment mechanism that prevents that from happening. and puts them in a stronger position. So that's the second. And then the third aspect is we have this carbon market that's in place, and we have an opportunity so that the large polluters, on the marginal reductions that they make, that they can pay for people's climate smart choices.
That is such baloney, that last part, to me, that large industrial emitters will pay more so that we can pay less. That's snake oil as far as I'm concerned. But on this carbon border adjustment mechanism, what's wrong with that, in your opinion?
So first of all, steel, like carbon is an ingredient that makes steel. Like steel is iron plus carbon. Those are the basic ingredients. So I don't know how they will reduce carbon in steel.
Well, right? In the Sioux, they're going to have an electric arc furnace in the Sioux. So that's what.
Yeah. Okay. So then
instead of a coal-fired furnace, for example, right? Instead of a coal-fired furnace, usually takes a lot of coal to make steel, right?
Okay, but then the electric furnace, that's a big furnace and a lot of electricity consumed, and you have to produce that electricity somehow.
Right.
Right.
Well, in Ontario, that's made it's mostly nuclear power in Ontario, zero emission nuclear power.
So then they don't need any tariffs. Then that should be cheaper, anyways.
Okay. Look, we're right at a time. We're right up against it. That's hour number one. Thank you, Dan Veer. That's hour number one of Talkback. Another one that's just flying by. I really hope our callers that are on the line will stay on the line with us through the latest breaking news and join us for hour number two of Talkback and the Friday Free-for-All on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number two of Talkback on a Friday Free-for-All. So it's open line, open topic today, but the election, with the election being on Monday, of course, that's top of mind for most people. Jody in Calgary up next. Hi, Jody.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, Jody.
Hey, how are you? Just want to say, I know you're doing good stuff for Ottawa, but just want to say that I hate to say this, but I think Toronto's going to go far this year in the NHL in the playoffs. They look
pretty good.
Really good. Yeah, they look really good. They plus they got that Craig Berube, the coach. Yeah, that guy's So I think they're going to go far. I hate to say it. Second of all, carbon copy Carney. He really scares me, and he's just. I don't trust him. Every word that comes out of his mouth is like BS. And I really feel bad for Canada if he does get in. Okay. And third of all, to ask you a question, is a National Post a pretty good newspaper?
Well, it's good for opinion, especially, right of center opinion. That was it. Always its raison d'etre. That's the reason that it was launched in the first place, was to be kind of the conservative counter voice to what was always seen as kind of the traditional liberal bias in the newspapers, specifically the national newspaper, the Globe and Mail, but also the Toronto Star and others. Conrad Black launched the National Post way back when. Conrad He's not involved in it anymore, except writing columns from time to time, but it was always seen as the conservative newspaper. Yeah,
that's what I thought, because they have a thing on there this morning on the internet where they say that 70% of the pollsters are saying are betting on Poilievre to win.
I didn't see that. I don't see that.
Not the pollsters. 70% of the bettors. Yeah, the bettors.
Oh, the bettors in the bettors market.
Yeah,
okay.
70%. Yeah, are picking Poilievre to win a minority government. So I just thought that I would mention that to you. Like, I was reading that this morning, and I'm like, that kind of gives me a little bit of hope.
All right.
So
okay.
So yeah. But I just think that like that lady called in a couple days ago about she said that Carney was like a Lenin, like from Russia there, Lenin and a Marxist and stuff, and actually that is a quote from one of his books. I actually looked it up after I heard her on the radio.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if he's a Marxist Leninist.
I'm just pretty scared right now. I'm pretty scared. But thanks for taking my call.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you, Jody. I guess for Jody, it's go Habs go. If I recall, he's a Habs fan. Ernie in Kitchener. Hello, Ernie. You with me, Ernie?
Yep.
Hi, Ernie.
Hey, Rob.
Go ahead. Yeah, good to hear from you again.
Good. Just a couple comments quickly about just about that one caller about saying that the Conservatives aren't progressive enough. So, like, obviously we know Landsman is gay, right? They have there's another MP in Alberta that's also, like, he's gay. I'm not sure exactly. Eric Duncan, I think is his name.
Yeah.
And the Conservatives also have, like, they have another immigrant, a Latino gay that's running in an area. I'm not sure exactly where he is, but just for that record, and don't get me wrong, I can't really speak on this. Well, I guess I can with my opinion, but I have two wonderful, great gay neighbors, and they got a big blue sign, and they were discussing this, and we were talking about the election, how things are going, and they were saying, Ernie, like, we're getting attacked by a lot of our community at the gym. Like, when we go to the gym, and they're honest about this. And I go, well, what's the issue to you? They said, well, Ernie, we're gay. Everything's fine. It's okay. No one's coming with pitchforks. We don't have to. We're not worried about our rights getting taken away.
Right.
It's been about the past 15 years, and that's what the issue comes to. And I've also noticed too, just from our street, there's people being, wow, you guys are voting Conservative, and they're shocked by that. Like, aren't you worried? Well, what are you worried about? Like, I find these wedge issues come in when the Liberals are scared to talk about the past of what's been going on in Canada. So that abortion, like, I don't even know what the next thing is going to come in. Is all of a sudden like, who knows, Rob? But I'm sick of it. We all know, like, it's a freedom Canada. These issues are so long done and over with, and I'm just sick of hearing about them.
Okay. Interesting points. Yeah.
What's that?
Interesting points.
Yeah, and so it's just that these keep coming up, and
well, his point, and I don't want to criticize other callers. It's, I welcome ideas from all of our callers, no matter where they are on the political spectrum. He said, well, this is not your grandfather's Conservative Party or your father's Conservative Party. To which I guess I would say, well, was the Trudeau government, and by extension this government, with all the same cabinet ministers, all the same players, but with a different person at the top, is this your grandfather's Liberal Party?
Well, also too, Rob, I want to question that there too. How are things going to be different if Conservatives win? Like, what's the different life going to be because of those points? If we're talking about those points, what are things that people should be scared about? And that's where I find that is trying to divide and wedge that issue into between people and bring up this false narrative that that's going to happen. The Conservatives get in. Watch out, Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to hear from you, Ernie. We'll stop here. Hour number 2 is underway. Let's go to Jim is in Halifax here in hour number 2. Hello, Jim.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, Jim.
Calling as a follow-up to a call you had with someone earlier.
Okay.
You mentioned that you had apparently heard that somehow a few veterans had been offered medical assistance in dying, as a way, and they might have even wanted to do it because you said the words, they were poor.
No, that's not what I said. No, that's not what I said.
That's exactly what you said.
No, it's not what, no.
Because they were poor.
I said there have been cases where people have opted for MAID, not because they're terminally ill or facing end of life or in palliative care, but because their circumstances are such that they are poor, do not have adequate housing, and they have lost the will to live. It's inadequate social services. It's not any kind of disease condition, is why they're opting for MAID, which was never what MAID was supposed to be about.
And I agree completely, and we're totally in agreement.
All right, thank you.
Debating semantics. But then you went on you were saying it in the context of criticizing the Liberals for being in support of MAID. The real thing is, of course, that we need to improve social services and income supports for older people or ill people. And yet, to get to my point, Polyev voted against seniors' Dentacare, and I'm a beneficiary of that, so I know exactly how it works, and he voted against it. It helps lower-income seniors. He also voted against the slight improvements to pharmacare. That wasn't income or age-related so much. But so you can't, it's sort of a cheap shot to say, you know, somebody is pressuring, or no, not pressuring, but anyway, someone might, especially seniors, boomers, might be opting for MAID because they're poor, but yet your guy Polyev voted against.
Well, I'm not saying he's my guy. I'm not saying he's my guy.
Well, again, come on, we don't need to debate that, but okay, fair enough. That's my opinion that he's your guy, but
it's an opinion. Yeah, it's an opinion show, sir.
Long ago.
Yeah.
And then one more thing, just
yes.
So in other words, I think it was a bit of a cheap shot, because the reason people might opt for MAID, as you said, is because of all those reasons, but yet the Conservative candidate for Prime Minister voted against one very concrete measure to help lower income older people.
Fair enough.
And then I think the other reason people might.
But he was the leader of the opposition at the time, right?
Yeah, no. He's now the Conservative.
That's his job, is to oppose the government, right?
Well, not on good stuff. No, that's not the way our parliamentary system works. You're allowed to vote.
All right,
for
dental care may be one thing. I think pharmacare is a totally different thing. I think the country will regret doing pharmacare the way it is envisioned by both the Liberals and the Democrats, which is single universal payer pharmacare. I think I don't think that's a good idea from a policy standpoint.
So you noticed I made the distinction that Dentacare started with seniors, pharmacare does not.
Yes.
I don't necessarily disagree with you on that, but
two
separate bills. They were not introduced conjointly.
Sure. Okay.
The Conservatives had the option to vote for Dentacare, which clearly started with seniors. It was a way to reduce whatever income necessity.
Disparity. Yeah.
And then very quickly, the other reason I think people are a little bit suspicious of Polyev, I don't disagree with all his policies by any means. Many of them are quite reasonable. However, it's his style, and I think that's why especially women, and the polls show that, especially women don't like him.
I've asked about that.
The trucker thing and his two-gender comment. There's only two genders, male and female. He doesn't have to do that stuff. He could just shut his mouth and not lose votes, but he chooses to be Trumpish by getting out there and trying to stake out that far right.
Well, he was when and as far as I know, the only time he has really commented on that during the entire course of this election campaign is when he was asked about it by a news reporter.
That's correct, but
in kind of a gotcha format. I thought it was a totally gotcha question.
Well, I can't replay the tape in my mind right now, but it's kind of like he could have handled it like he handles abortion and other sensitive gender-related issues. He could have just said, no, nothing's going to change. Everything's fine the way it is. You know what I mean? Just nuance it a bit
But some people on the issue of gender identity, some people don't think it's all well and good. Some people don't believe, for example, that people who are born male but then transition and become female should be allowed to participate in female sports. And that's not and in public, when they do public opinion about that, it's not even really controversial that there are questions about whether that should be allowed.
And so once again, you've gone to the red meat issue. That's 0.01% of what's going on in the real world. That's not okay. That could.
But
be
when he's asked
with,
about it by a news reporter, should he not answer the question, or should he just? Or you say he should answer it in a different way?
He he could have
and just
said,
say status quo is fine, and I won't interfere in that.
Or he could have said, I'm not going to, he didn't have to say there's only two genders, male, female, and then that was end of answer. He could have said, I'm going to take a bit of a nuanced minute to answer your question, but he did. And if you saw him, he looked right into the camera, and it was that kind of go for the base look. He could have said what you just said, but he didn't.
Okay.
He chose to use 8 words. Well, he didn't use 3 words like axe the tax, but
maybe that was
8 words.
Maybe that's muscle habit, sir, with him, because he's been that way for so long. Okay, fair enough.
And that's why people don't like him sometimes.
Sure. Okay.
Anyway.
But also, I really appreciate your discussion. It's been very healthy, I think. People also like that about him. You understand that he is
of course
direct and firm in many of his opinions.
And it was working for so long when he had, and again, I'm not going to defend Justin Trudeau, but it worked when he had his foil, but he doesn't have his foil anymore to be firm against. He's got a guy who's got a bit of sophistication and culture and education and presence,
very impressive. A very impressive individual. Look, appreciate your call. Very good. Hope you'll call again. Bye-bye. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. This is News Radio. Paul in Cambridge on the Friday Free for All. Hi, Paul.
How are you doing today?
Hanging in there, Paul. Yeah, everybody's very passionate in staking out their political territory today. I'm loving the discussion.
They sure are.
What
your
about
last
you?
caller, it sounded like his biggest problem with Pierre Poilievre is that instead of getting a direct answer, he wanted a liberal answer. You say, what time is it? And a liberal would say, well, time is relative. Are you talking in this time zone or another time zone? Are you talking today or tomorrow?
Well, no, I would say specifically the previous caller was saying he was wondering why he questioned why Pierre Poilievre was voting against programs that would help low-income people, whether it's dental care or pharmacare or what have you, right? So,
well, let's get on to the important things here. Apparently, as a boomer, I'm supposed to vote for Carney. Now, as a boomer, I'm old enough that I can think for myself. And I think, there's a big thing going around about some guy that they've made cutouts of him and memes and everything else, giving the single finger salute to conservatives. As a boomer, what I look at is there's going to come a time. Yes, I have my house. I have my savings. I am going to live through my retirement, and I'm going to enjoy my life. So as a boomer, should I vote liberal? Well, as a boomer, I'm looking at what is going to happen to my investments over another 4 years of liberal domination. Are my investments going to be worth anything when it comes time when I'm really going to need them? So, I run out of my investments because the liberals have driven the stock market into the pits. So I think, okay, well, I got my home. I'll sell my home. But guess what? There's not going to be anybody able to buy my home at a fair market value. So I'm going to end up, because of liberal policies making housing unaffordable for a younger person, I'm going to have to sell my house at a discounted rate to Brookfield so they can take it over and rent it out to somebody else. Right. Is that what the whole plan behind the liberals are? As a boomer, like I say, I've been around long enough. I've seen a few things, and I watch what's going on. And if I'm starting to look at my investments and saying, under the last couple of years, my investments are going downhill as a result of liberal policies. And with Trump up there, Mark Carney, who's the best person to fight against Trump? Trump's only been here for a couple of months, and this is all Carney wants to concentrate on. He does not want to deal with the last 9 years.
Gotta go. Gotta go. That's it, Paul. I'm sure we'll speak again soon. Bye-bye. I will say this, just to the point that has been raised multiple times during Talkback today here on Friday ahead of Monday's election. From Jim in Halifax, and I think it was James in Calgary, talking about this version of the Conservative Party. And we have had these reports about the divide between the Poilievre people and the Doug Ford people in Ontario, progressive Conservative government in Ontario. The divide between the federal Conservative campaign team and the Tim Houston people in Nova Scotia, progressive Conservative government in Nova Scotia. What if everyone's watching the returns come in on Monday and it is like the elections of the past? And the Newfoundland results come in first and it's red, and St. John's is red, and Nova Scotia is red, and Halifax is red, and PEI, Charlottetown is red, and New Brunswick, Moncton, Fredericton, St. John, it's all red. And Quebec goes mostly red, especially Montreal is all red. Maybe in the other parts of the province, there's different shades of blue, some block seats there, maybe a few Conservative wins over there. And Ontario goes mostly Liberal, especially Toronto goes Liberal, Ottawa goes Liberal, and the Liberals do well in the urban and suburban parts of the big cities in Ontario. The Kitchener, Waterloo, London, Oshawa, Windsor, Barrie, Guelph, Kingston. In the cities, it's red. Well, it could be an early night. Maybe it's BC and we're just waiting to find out whether it's a majority or minority Liberal government. What if the lower mainland of BC goes Liberal? I think to the callers' points, who have been talking about the approach, the messaging, the tone of this Conservative Party with this leader and this campaign manager, whether a result like that does prompt some soul searching, both in the party and in the Conservative movement in this country. If that's the outcome, again and again and again, would it not be time for the Conservatives to think, what are we missing here? What do the voters in these parts of the country want that we're not giving them? Why can't we win there? It's great to sweep Alberta and great to sweep Saskatchewan and win in ridings across Alberta and Saskatchewan and win by 20 and 30 points. But if you can't win in Eastern Canadian cities where the election is decided, is there not going to have to be some soul searching about a failure to connect? For example, why is it that Tim Houston, PC, can win big majority governments? Or that New Brunswick elected back-to-back PC majority governments? Or the PC has PEI has a PC majority government? Ontario, PC majority government. Become a federal election. Atlantic Canada goes red. Ontario goes red. After 9 years of Liberal rule? Do the Conservatives want to spend eternity in opposition? If not, they may need to figure that out, depending on the outcome on Monday night. Hugh in Calgary. Hello, Hugh. You're up next, Hugh. Hi, Hugh. Are you with me?
Yes. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just a couple quick thoughts, basically. Just wanted to say good luck to all Canadians on Monday for our election. I think we're going to need it over the next 4 years. Okay. I've always been a believer that good opposition makes a good government. Over the last 9 years, I have seen very little in the way of good opposition from the Conservative Party of Canada, which makes for a lesser Liberal government, in my opinion. It seems to me now that going into our election on Monday, the CPC has offered us nothing new in terms of good opposition for us basically to sink our teeth into and say, hey, maybe I can think about going another route here. That combined with the fact I have no confidence in the CPC's ability to put up cabinet ministers with any experience basically had me turn my vote away from them. And here I am in true blue Alberta. And I can assure you my opinion is not very popular here.
I bet it's not. You're in the minority.
Thank you for taking my call.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you for letting me have a voice, sir. Sorry,
yes.
Again?
Yeah, I said I bet you're in the minority opinion where you are.
Very much the minority opinion. However, everybody that I work with knows kind of where I stand. They respect where I stand. They don't have to agree with me, and I don't have to agree with them, but we do have to have dialogue. We do have to be able to talk about this. And to your earlier point about some soul searching from the CPC, should they lose this next election, I absolutely and completely agree that they have to find a way to be a better opposition if they want more Canadians to stand behind them in future elections.
All right. Thank you, Hugh, for your call, and we'll stop here.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, get to the calls in just a second. David.
Yes.
I got to get this out before Monday. Okay. I call it the chaos scenario.
Right.
For Monday. I'm not saying this is going to happen or it's even likely to happen, only that there is a slight chance that it could happen. But just imagine this. Okay. Turns come in, da-da-da-da. Conservatives win the popular vote. They've done that in the last two elections. They've won the popular vote. Conservatives win the most seats, but still lose the election.
Say what? Huh?
Yeah. Sounds crazy, right? It's
kind
of crazy.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it's not impossible. 343 seats are up for grabs in this election. To win a majority, a party needs 172. So let's just pretend. It's all just pretend. Let's say the Conservatives do better than what the polls are saying the Conservatives are going to do. And let's say the Liberals do worse than what the polls say the Liberals are going to do. Let's say Conservatives win 152 seats. And the Liberals win 151. And the reason the Liberals did not win more seats is because the Bloc makes a last-minute surge in Quebec, and the Conservatives outperform in Ontario. But let's say the Bloc wins 35 seats. They had 33 before the election. Let's say they win 35. They pick up a couple of seats. And the NDP wins the other 5. Green wins 0, no independents. That's your 343 seats there, okay? Now, it's an entirely fictional outcome. This is not what the polls say will happen, but it could happen. What should happen next? Logic would dictate the Conservatives say, we won the election. We won a minority government. We got 152 seats. We had the most votes. We won the election. Conservative minority government, right? Prime Minister Poilievre, right? Maybe not. The odds actually favor maybe not. Because here's how things work. I don't know if people are really aware of this, David, in our system. Even if that fictional scenario was the outcome on election night, a slim minority government for the Conservatives on Monday night, come Tuesday, who's still the Prime Minister? Mark Carney. The election doesn't change that. It's still Prime Minister Mark Carney. And he will be the Prime Minister until he resigns, or until he is dismissed by the Governor General, or if he dies. Let's not hope for that. Prime Minister Mark Carney, despite not having the plurality of seats, would have every right to meet the House, present an agenda, and test the confidence of the House. And I hate to break it to you, but we double-checked this with a law firm. An incumbent prime minister does not need to resign just because another party won the plurality of seats in the House after an election. So in my fictional scenario, Mark Carney could totally meet the House, present an agenda, deliver a throne speech, and then say to the other parties, do you support this agenda or not? And the Liberals, with their 151 seats, would need 21 MPs to vote for their agenda. Now, the Conservatives, they're obviously going to be a no. NDP doesn't really matter in this fictional scenario. They only have 5 seats. But there's the Bloc sitting there with 35 seats. Let's say the Bloc supports the Liberals because maybe the Liberals promise Quebec all kinds of things. Well, there's your minority Liberal government in action. And there's the Conservatives in opposition, despite winning the most votes and the most seats. What is the likelihood of that happening? Well, pretty rare. Something like that hasn't happened in this country since 1925 when it was King versus me, and it all ended a year later. King Bing affair thing. That's the last time it happened. The tradition would be Poilievre and the Conservatives would say, we won the election, deserve a chance to test the House. But again, think about our fictional scenario. How could the Conservatives survive? With their 152 seats, could they count on the NDP? Hardly not. Could they count on the Bloc? Would they align themselves with the separatists? Don't know. And would the Bloc support a Conservative agenda? How long would a Conservative minority government even last? Would it even survive a vote on a throne speech? And if they put together a throne speech and have a vote on it and it's defeated, what would the Governor General do then? Call another election? Probably not. More likely, Rito Hall would say, what about you other parties? Can you govern? Over to you, Liberals, Bloc, and NDP. Crazy, eh, David? Crazy.
Yep. Could happen, though. Perfectly within the rules.
Is it likely? Not really. Not the way things are looking right now. Is it impossible? Not at all. But think about this. Imagine how that would go over. Conservatives get the most votes, win the most seats, and are still out in the cold. And the Liberals are still running the show. Chaos scenario. Give that some thought over the weekend.